I had everything a man could want. A successful career as a software developer in Seattle, a beautiful wife named Amanda, and 6 years of what I thought was marital bliss. Growing up, my brother Jackson and I were inseparable, sharing dreams, secrets, and unwavering trust. That is until I walked in on him and Amanda in our bed. Now Jackson is dying of cancer, and my family thinks I am heartless for not forgiving him. Before I tell you how my entire world collapsed, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. Trust me, you will want to hear how I handled what came next. Looking back, my relationship with Jackson defined much of my childhood. Being 4 years older, I always saw myself as his protector. When neighborhood bullies targeted him for his smaller stature, I was there to stand up for him. When he struggled with math homework, I stayed up late explaining equations. We were more than brothers. We were best friends in a world that seemed determined to challenge us at every turn. Our father walking out when I was 12 and Jackson only 8 created a void that we filled with our brotherhood. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads, so Jackson and I learned to lean on each other. I would cook dinner while he did the dishes. I would help him with school projects, and he would draw pictures to cheer me up when college application rejections arrived. Despite the 4-year age gap, we shared an understanding that only siblings abandoned by a parent could comprehend. Money was always tight, so I worked weekends at a local grocery store and evenings at a coffee shop to save for college. It took me 6 years of part-time classes and full-time work, but I eventually graduated with a degree in computer science. Jackson attended every one of my classes, when he could, sitting in the back of lecture halls, proud of his big brother paving the way. During my junior year, I met Amanda in an economics elective. She sat next to me on the first day, borrowed my textbook, and somehow never returned it, creating the perfect excuse to keep meeting up. With golden blonde hair that caught the light and a laugh that could brighten even my most stressful days, Amanda quickly became the center of my world. Our connection was instant and powerful, something I had never experienced before. After graduation, I landed my dream job at a rising tech company, and within a year Amanda and I were married. The ceremony was small but perfect, with Jackson serving as my best man. His speech brought tears to every eye in the room as he talked about watching me sacrifice everything to build a future, and how happy he was that I had found someone to share it with. While I found my path relatively early, Jackson struggled to find his direction. He jumped between community college programs, never quite settling on anything. He tried business administration, then graphic design, then culinary arts, but nothing seemed to stick. I never judged him for it, instead, offering both financial and emotional support whenever he needed it. When he was short on rent, I covered him. When he needed career advice, I spent hours helping him polish his resume and practice interviews. 3 years into my marriage with Amanda, I finally saved enough for a down payment on our first house. A modest 3-bedroom in a quiet suburb, it represented everything I had worked for. Around this time, Jackson lost his apartment after his roommate moved out unexpectedly. Without hesitation, I invited him to stay with us temporarily while job hunting. Amanda welcomed the idea, saying she enjoyed having him around, and I was thrilled to help my brother get back on his feet. Life seemed perfect during this period. Amanda and I were discussing starting a family. My career was advancing with a recent promotion, and having Jackson around brought back the camaraderie of our youth. We would stay up late watching movies, have competitive game nights, and grill in the backyard on weekends. Never once did I suspect anything was amiss. I trusted Amanda and Jackson implicitly, the 2 most important people in my world. I remember telling my colleague Brian how lucky I felt to have such a supportive wife and a brother who got along so well. Brian made a comment about how he would never let his brother stay with him and his wife for more than a weekend, joking about it being a recipe for disaster. I laughed it off, thinking how fortunate I was that such concerns were so far from my reality. If only I had recognized the warning signs that were right in front of me all along. The day everything fell apart started ordinarily enough. I was returning home a day early from a business trip to Portland having wrapped up our project ahead of schedule. I had not called ahead, thinking I would surprise Amanda with dinner reservations at the Italian restaurant where we had celebrated our first anniversary. I even stopped to buy flowers, white lilies, her favorite. The irony of bringing flowers to my own funeral as a husband is not lost on me now. Pulling into our driveway around 2 in the afternoon, I immediately noticed something off. Both Amanda and Jackson's cars were in the driveway, despite both supposedly being at work. Still, I rationalized it as nothing concerning. Perhaps they both had taken a day off, or maybe Jackson was between interviews and Amanda had a migraine. She had been complaining about headaches more frequently over the past few months, which I now recognize as her guilt manifesting physically. Entering through the front door, the house felt different. There was an energy, a tension in the air that I could not immediately place. The television was off, but music played faintly from upstairs. A playlist I recognized as one Amanda reserved for special occasions. I called out, but no one answered. As I climbed the stairs, I heard sounds from our bedroom, sounds that made my stomach drop and my hands go cold. I stood outside our bedroom door for what felt like an eternity, flowers dangling from my numb fingers, willing what I was hearing to be anything other than what I knew it was. When I finally pushed open the door, the scene before me shattered my world into a million irreparable pieces. There was my wife entangled with my brother in our marriage bed. For several seconds, nobody moved. It was as if time itself had stopped preserving this moment of betrayal in amber for me to examine from every excruciating angle. Then Amanda screamed, scrambling for sheets to cover herself, while Jackson jumped up, his face a mask of shock and shame. I do not remember dropping the flowers. I do not remember if I said anything at first. But I do remember the flood of emotions that hit me like a physical blow: confusion, disbelief, rage, and underneath it all, a devastating heartbreak that made it difficult to breathe. Amanda found her voice first. Tears streaming down her face, she began a litany of apologies and explanations. "Domenic, please, this is not what it looks like. We never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake." Jackson, pulling on his jeans, attempted to approach me. "Brother, I am so sorry. We did not plan this. It just happened. Please let me explain." Their words washed over me without penetrating the shock. How long I finally managed to ask, my voice unrecognizable even to myself. Their glances at each other told me everything, before Amanda whispered, 6 months, 6 months, half a year of deception, under my own roof. Every dinner conversation, every movie night, every kiss goodbye in the morning had been a lie. While I worked overtime to pay our mortgage and build our future, they had been betraying me in the most intimate way possible. "Get out," I said quietly then, with increasing volume. "Get out, both of you, get out of my house." Amanda began sobbing harder, reaching for me. "Please, Domenic, we can talk about this. I love you. This was just a terrible mistake. A 6-month mistake. Get your things and get out before I call the police." I responded, backing away from her outstretched hands, as if they were contaminated. Jackson tried once more. "Brother, please. We never wanted to hurt you." Something in me snapped at those words. "You are not my brother. No brother would do this. You have 30 minutes to pack essentials and leave. Anything left behind goes in the trash." I walked downstairs and sat in my car, watching the clock and calling a locksmith to come immediately. 32 minutes later, I watched as they both drove away. Amanda sobbing hysterically in her car, Jackson looking back at the house with what appeared to be regret. It meant nothing to me. That night alone in the house was the most painful of my life. I could not bear to enter our bedroom, so I slept on the couch, though sleep is a generous term for the state of numbed consciousness I drifted in and out of. At one point, I gathered our wedding photos and smashed each frame methodically, cutting my hand in the process, but barely noticing the pain. The next morning, I discovered more layers to their betrayal. Checking my phone, which I had ignored all night, I found messages from Amanda begging forgiveness. Scrolling back through our text history, I discovered conversations that had clearly been deleted, but Jackson had accidentally sent a message meant for Amanda to me weeks earlier. It said only he suspects nothing, followed quickly by sorry, wrong person. I had thought nothing of it at the time. Going through Amanda's laptop, which she had left behind in her hasty exit, I found emails between them discussing their deception, laughing about how oblivious I was, planning encounters while I was at work. The deliberateness of it all made me physically ill. By noon, Amanda's parents had called defending their daughter. "Marriage is complicated," her father said. "It takes two to ruin a relationship. Whatever issues you two were having, this reaction is extreme." I hung up without responding and called a divorce attorney instead. The lawyer, a stern woman named Gloria, assured me that given the circumstances we could push for a favorable settlement despite Washington being a community property state. Over the next week, Jackson attempted to contact me repeatedly. He showed up at my office, sent emails, and even had mutual friends reach out on his behalf. I blocked his number and informed security at my workplace not to allow him entry. To his credit, my boss was understanding when I explained the situation, offering me time off if I needed it. My mother initially seemed to be on my side. She expressed shock and disappointment in Jackson, assuring me that I had every right to feel betrayed. "Take all the time you need," she said. "Some things cannot be easily forgiven." If only she had maintained that perspective. 2 months after discovering the affair, I was deep in divorce proceedings. Despite having contributed nothing to the down payment or mortgage of our home, Amanda was fighting for half its value. Her attorney argued that her emotional support during my career advancement entitled her to a significant portion of our assets. Meanwhile, I had moved to the guest bedroom, unable to sleep in the master bedroom even after replacing the bed. My co-workers formed an unexpected support system. Brian, who had joked about brothers staying over now regularly, invited me for dinner with his family to ensure I was eating properly. Other colleagues covered my projects when I needed time for legal meetings. Their solidarity provided rare moments of relief in an otherwise dark period. Then came the news that changed the family dynamic entirely. Jackson had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim, 6 months at most. My mother called me sobbing, begging me to reconcile with Jackson before it was too late. "He is your brother, Dominic," she pleaded. "Whatever he did, he is still your blood. He made a terrible mistake, but he is dying. Can you live with yourself if you do not make peace with him?" I remained silent on the phone, unable to express the complexity of my feelings. Part of me felt a distant sadness for the brother I once loved. Another part, the wounded part, felt a disturbing sense of cosmic justice. Mostly I felt nothing at all when it came to Jackson, an emptiness where our brotherhood used to reside. "I will think about it," I finally replied, knowing even as I said it that reconciliation was unlikely. The pressure intensified as word of Jackson's condition spread through our extended family. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years called to tell me life was too short for grudges. My aunt sent lengthy emails about forgiveness being for the forgiver, not the forgiven. Each message picked at my wounds, suggesting that my inability to forgive was a character flaw rather than a reasonable response to profound betrayal. Then Amanda reached out with a new angle. "Jackson's diagnosis has made me realize what truly matters," her message read. "I made a terrible mistake, but now I understand what I almost lost. I want to try again, Dominic. I want to be there for you during this difficult time. We can get through this together." The audacity was breathtaking. Now that Jackson was dying, she wanted to return to the safety of our marriage. Was I supposed to believe her affair with my brother was now over because his expiration date had been set? The manipulation was so transparent it would have been laughable if it were not so painful. The situation reached a breaking point at what I had been told would be a small family dinner at my mother's house. Arriving to find both Jackson and Amanda there, I realized I had been ambushed. My mother had orchestrated this forced reconciliation, believing she could heal our family through proximity and peer pressure. "We just want to talk," my mother said, blocking the door when I turned to leave. "Please, Domenic." For me. Against my better judgment, I stayed sitting stiffly at the dining table of my childhood. Jackson looked genuinely ill, his skin yellowed and his frame gaunt. Amanda sat beside him, periodically touching his arm in a gesture of support that made my stomach turn. The conversation started civilly enough with mundane discussions of weather and my mother's garden. Then my Uncle Robert, who had always been close to Jackson, cleared his throat and addressed the elephant in the room. "Domenic, we are all family here. And family forgives. Jackson has apologized. He is facing the end of his life. Surely you can find it in your heart to make peace." Something in me snapped. The weeks of pressure, the implicit suggestion that I was the villain in this story, finally broke through my careful composure. "Would any of you like to hear what I found in their emails?" I asked quietly. The table fell silent. They laughed about deceiving me. They met in my bed because it was more exciting that way. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment. It was 6 months of deliberate betrayal from the two people I trusted most in the world. My mother paled, but Jackson spoke up. "It was wrong. We were wrong. But I am dying, Domenic. Does that count for nothing? Your cancer and our brotherhood are separate issues," I replied. "One does not erase the other." The argument escalated from there. Family members took sides, some defending Jackson because of his condition, others uncomfortable with the details of the betrayal I had revealed. In the chaos, my mother finally lost her patience. "You are being heartless and cruel," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "How can you be so cold to your dying brother? This is not how I raised you." Her words cut deeper than she knew. Had she forgotten how I had always protected Jackson, how I had worked multiple jobs to put myself through school rather than burden her finances, how I had supported Jackson emotionally and financially for years? I left without another word, ignoring the calls of my name as I drove away. The next day, Amanda showed up at my workplace, creating a scene in the lobby. She alternated between tears and accusations, claiming I was abandoning my brother in his time of need, that I was punishing her for a mistake that just happened. My boss, witnessing this, surprised me again with his support. "Take some personal time, Domenic," he said after security had escorted Amanda out. "You can work remotely until this settles down. Your projects are too valuable to risk your well-being." As Jackson's health deteriorated, my mother's guilt trips intensified. Daily calls detailed his worsening condition, always ending with pointed comments about time running out for reconciliation. Each call left me drained and questioning myself, despite my therapist's assurances that my feelings were valid. The final straw came when I discovered through a mutual friend that despite his illness, Jackson and Amanda were still seeing each other. While both attempted to manipulate me back into their lives, they continued their relationship. The revelation cemented my resolve. There would be no deathbed reconciliation, no forgiveness without genuine remorse, no family reunification at the expense of my dignity. With clarity born of righteous anger, I began to take back control of my life. My first step was upgrading my legal representation. Gloria was competent, but I needed someone more aggressive. I hired Daniel Reeves, an attorney known for his ruthless efficiency in high-conflict divorces. His retainer depleted my savings, but his reputation made him worth every penny. "We will need evidence of the affair," Daniel explained during our first meeting. "Texts, emails, witness statements, anything concrete." Fortunately, I had preserved everything: screenshots of messages, the emails from Amanda's laptop, and statements from neighbors who had noticed their suspicious behavior while I was traveling. Daniel reviewed the materials with clinical detachment, occasionally nodding. "This is more than sufficient," he confirmed. "Now, about your house. You mentioned your wife contributed nothing to the down payment." With Daniel's guidance, I documented every financial contribution to our marital assets, creating a clear paper trail of my disproportionate investment in our home, lives. While Washington law still entitled Amanda to a portion of our community property, Daniel was confident we could minimize her claims significantly. Simultaneously, I established firm boundaries with my mother. During a difficult phone conversation, I made my position clear. I love you, Mom, but I will not discuss Jackson with you. Every time you bring him up, I will end the call. This is non-negotiable. She tested this boundary immediately, launching into a story about Jackson's latest treatment. True to my word, I hung up. It took 3 terminated calls before she began respecting my terms, allowing us to maintain some semblance of a relationship focused on her life and mine, with Jackson's name carefully avoided. Seeking professional support, I found a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma. Dr. Winters validated feelings I had been told were unreasonable, explaining that my response was natural given the depth of the deception. Forgiveness is a personal journey, she explained during one session. It happens on your timeline, not anyone else's. And it does not necessarily mean reconciliation or continued relationship. These sessions became an anchor in the storm, providing the one space where I could express my full range of emotions without judgment or pressure. Through therapy, I began recognizing the manipulation tactics being used against me and developing tools to counter them. As the divorce proceedings intensified, I made the difficult decision to sell our house. Despite Amanda's legal objections, the court allowed the sale with the proceeds to be held in escrow until our settlement was finalized. Watching movers pack up the life we had built brought both sadness and relief. Each box represented memories tainted by betrayal, but also steps toward freedom. My new apartment, a modern 1-bedroom downtown, became a sanctuary. I furnished it sparsely but intentionally with nothing that reminded me of my previous life. No wedding photos, no housewarming gifts from family, not even the same brands of household items. This fresh start, though lonely at times, offered a clean slate unburdened by triggers and painful associations. During this period, I discovered an online support community for people who had experienced similar betrayals. In their forums, I found understanding without the expectation of forgiveness that my family demanded. These strangers, united by comparable pain, offered perspectives and coping strategies that proved invaluable. One member, a man whose wife had an affair with his cousin, became a particular source of strength, having navigated his own journey to recovery several years ahead of mine. As I rebuilt my life, unexpected allies emerged. My father's sister, Aunt Catherine, whom I had rarely seen since childhood, reached out after hearing about the situation through family gossip. "Your father did something similar to your mother. You know," she revealed during our lunch meeting. "That is why they really split. And Jackson, this is not his first betrayal. There was an incident in high school with his best friend's girlfriend. Your mother covered it up, paid the family to move away." This revelation illuminated patterns I had been too close to see. Jackson's charm had always hidden a selfish core, one my mother had protected and enabled throughout his life. It explained her fierce defense of him, now born not just of maternal love, but of her own complicity in creating who he had become. Armed with this understanding and growing stronger daily, I took another decisive step. Using a legal recording app approved by my attorney, I met Amanda at a neutral location, ostensibly to discuss divorce terms directly. During our conversation, she inadvertently admitted the affair had begun weeks before Jackson moved in, contradicting her previous claims of a spontaneous mistake. The recording proved invaluable in negotiations. Confronted with this evidence, Amanda's attorney advised her to accept a settlement significantly more favorable to me. Instead of the 50-50 split, she had demanded she received only 25% of our marital assets, excluding my retirement accounts and stock options. As Jackson's condition worsened, family pressure for reconciliation reached fever pitch. Extended family members I barely knew called to express disappointment in me. Former friends suggested my grudge was disproportionate given the circumstances. Through it all, I maintained my position without defensiveness or explanation. I had stopped justifying my boundaries to those who refused to respect them. The final confrontation with my mother came unexpectedly. She showed up at my apartment, unannounced, eyes red from crying, clutching a photo album of Jackson and me as children. "He may only have weeks left," she began, but I cut her off. "Mom, I told you I would not discuss this. Just look at these pictures," she insisted, opening the album to show us building a treehouse together. "Remember who he is, who you both were." I closed the album gently but firmly. "I remember everything, including how you always made excuses for him. When he stole money from your purse, it was because he needed it more than you did. When he cheated on tests, it was because the teachers were too hard on him. When he wrecked your car driving drunk, you reported it stolen to protect him." My mother's expression shifted from pleading to shock. "I was being a good mother. To him, maybe. But what about me? When did you ever fight this hard for my happiness?" The question hung between us, unanswerable. For perhaps the first time, my mother saw the imbalance that had defined our family dynamic. Her shoulders slumped, as decades of unacknowledged favoritism became impossible to deny. "I never meant to," she began, then stopped. After a long moment, she whispered, "I am sorry, Dominic. I truly am." It was not a complete acceptance of responsibility, but it was a start. We parted with a fragile understanding, the first honest exchange we had shared in months. 1 year later, the landscape of my life had transformed entirely. Jackson passed away in October, slipping away in hospice care, surrounded by extended family. I did not attend the funeral, but I sent a letter to be read privately by my mother afterward. Its contents were between us, my final communication with the brother who had betrayed me, expressing neither forgiveness nor hatred, but acknowledgement of our complicated history and the conclusion of our story. The divorce was finalized with terms that recognized the nature of Amanda's betrayal. While no legal outcome could truly compensate for the emotional damage, the settlement allowed me to retain most of our assets and move forward financially, unencumbered. I later heard through mutual friends that Amanda had begun dating a doctor she met during Jackson's treatments, only to repeat her pattern of infidelity within months. Professionally, I thrived, channeling my energy into work, with a focus that earned me a significant promotion. Leading a team developing a revolutionary security application provided healthy distraction and genuine satisfaction. My colleagues, many of whom had supported me through the darkest period, celebrated this success with a sincerity that reminded me meaningful connections were still possible. Perhaps most surprisingly, a new relationship had tentatively begun. Lauren, a software engineer I met at a professional conference, approached relationships with the same straightforward honesty I now demanded in all aspects of my life. Our connection developed slowly, with careful boundaries and open communication. Her patience with my lingering trust issues demonstrated a depth of character that gradually restored my faith in partnership. My relationship with my mother evolved into something different, but perhaps healthier than before. After several months of minimal contact following Jackson's funeral, we began speaking weekly by phone. Our conversations remained somewhat superficial, but occasionally ventured into more meaningful territory. During one such call, she acknowledged that her enabling had contributed to Jackson's character flaws, an admission that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. Therapy continued to be a cornerstone of my healing journey. Dr. Winters helped me process not just the betrayal, but my complex feelings about Jackson's death. I discovered that grief and anger could coexist, that missing the brother I thought I had did not invalidate my feelings about his actions. 2 months after the funeral, my mother gave me a sealed envelope Jackson had left for me. I considered burning it unread, but curiosity eventually won out. His letter expressed what seemed like genuine remorse, acknowledging the depth of his betrayal and accepting full responsibility without excuses. He wrote of facing death with the weight of knowing he had destroyed our brotherhood, something he valued despite his actions suggesting otherwise. Reading his words stirred complicated emotions. There was a bitter comfort in his acknowledgement, yet his deathbed remorse came too late to rebuild what we had lost. I did not suddenly feel forgiveness wash over me as movies might suggest. Instead, I felt a quiet acceptance that this chapter was closed, allowing me to carry both the good memories of our childhood and the reality of his betrayal without either defining me. As I rebuilt my life, I discovered important truths about forgiveness and boundaries. Forgiveness, I learned, was not about excusing actions or pretending they never happened. It was about freeing myself from the consuming power of resentment. It did not require reconciliation or continued relationship. I could release the active anger toward Jackson and Amanda without welcoming them back into my life. Similarly, I came to understand that family is both biology and choice. The unconditional obligation to maintain relationships despite toxic behavior was a cultural myth that enabled abuse and betrayal. True family, I now believed, was defined by mutual respect and trustworthiness, not merely shared DNA. This perspective allowed me to build a chosen family of friends and colleagues, whose loyalty was demonstrated through actions, not assumed through relation. The experience, painful as it was, forced me to develop a stronger sense of self-worth and clearer boundaries. I learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags I might previously have ignored, and to stand firm against emotional manipulation. These skills served me not just in personal relationships but in all areas of life. Looking back from the vantage point of healing, I recognized that the greatest betrayals can indeed lead to the most profound growth. The brother and wife I trusted implicitly shattered my world, yet from those fragments I built something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more satisfying than what I had lost. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video to help others find it. Remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most, but your well-being matters. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own journey, whatever challenges you might be facing.